All right, we're good to go.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome everyone to the first bar meeting of 2021, I think. We are not a committee, we are a board of the publications group, which is something of a freewheeling ideas forum so that we can have bold and wet articles to run in our periodical. I think we have some new members. I know Julie Bell was supposed to be with us, but she's been elected judge. I don't know, is Julie going to be part of our committee? Do you know, Jennifer?
She sent an email this morning and said that she did not realize this meeting was taking place on Thursday. She had blocked out next week.
Okay.
And so she would try to jump on, but she was having to juggle her schedule. So yeah.
All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody, and I didn't really have much in the way of prepared remarks. I don't know if we need to do the ethics statement, the conflict of interest statement?
I believe we've started doing that recently.
Okay. Well, if there is anyone who's aware of any conflict of interest that would preclude you from participating in any part of the meeting as laid out in the agenda, please let us know at this time. All right, hearing none. I'll open the meeting up. Did everyone get the agenda? It is available for you. Jennifer sent it out a few days ago, but it's got the articles set out for the spring 2021, some other approved articles, and then proposed articles that will go through. Anybody need a minute to get that? It should be available in an email from a couple days ago. I think we're ready to begin. Then I'll turn it over to Jennifer unless anyone has any input at this time. Jennifer?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad you are all able to join us virtually today. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully sometime later this year. I want to welcome our new members. I see Mark is on here. Mark, who I've met because of the communications committee, and he wrote an article, the sabbatical article for us. Daria, I've not met. Should we do introductions of our new folks, just because we've got a lot of advisory members too, like Margaret and Camille, who may not know our counselors.
Sure.
Didn't mean to jump right in there. Hi, I'm Daria Hayes. I serve as the director for the Pro Bono Clinic at North Carolina Central University. I did not get the agenda. I think I'm on this committee, but I'm just going to attend everything until somebody kicks me.
I like your style.
Daria, are you a council member, or are you
I am a new council member.
Oh, great. Welcome.
So I feel like this is all orientation.
I didn't see you on the list for this committee.
And that's why I said, if you all kick me off, if I'm not really supposed to be on here. I just saw the agenda and I'm like, I'm attending everything and learning as much as I can.
If you could tell us where you're from and how you got here.
Oh, okay. I am a native of Durham, North Carolina. And I got here through the recommendation of Dorothy Harrison. And we are colleagues, and we both graduated from Central Law School. So I think that's how I got here.
Excellent. Great. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Mark is new.
Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here. This is my 9th year as a state bar counselor. I've served on a number of different committees, but I'm really excited. This is not a committee, but the editorial board, to be part of this. So I'm really looking forward to it, and appreciate the offer to join in. So, and I know many, but not all of you. So it's great to be here.
Mark, I can't believe we're only getting you on your 9th year.
I know.
I didn't realize you've been around that long.
Time flies by. I know.
Dang.
It's amazing. So,
Shoot.
yeah.
Well, don't be
Well, we
surprised if we
joked
stuck
that,
you in as
for
an
those years,
advisory member.
we joke 4 were dedicated to the AVO subcommittee. It wasn't quite that long, but we had we had a really long subcommittee meeting there. But no, it's been great. So I've
Awesome.
enjoyed
Well,
it.
welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, does anyone have any comments about the lineup that I have for the spring edition? We've got a lot of other approved articles, and I just sort of picked the 19th Amendment article. I feel like, that the anniversary of that was actually last year, but we only got the article recently. So I want to go ahead and get that in. The Klan Nazi trial has been a long time coming. So I wanted to get that in. Then we've got a pandemic article. The sabbatical, I kind of wanted to get in there because I feel like we're sort of seeing maybe a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, and some people might be just wanting to dream a little bit about getting away and taking a break. It's all been very stressful, so I felt like that was very timely. And then just the fun article of the True Crime podcast. I'll try to fit in some other things. We've got several book reviews that have been submitted and some memoirs. And so I'd like to get in as much as I can. And so it just kind of always falls down to how big is the rule amendments article? How big is the ethics, the proposed ethics article? If those are smaller pieces, then I can always slip in a couple more things. But for sure, I wanted to get these articles slated for spring. So any questions, any concerns?
What is the drop dead date for any modifications to these articles, Jennifer? I know the eviction crisis situation is changing by
Yes.
week. And
Holly did send me an update to that article. I want to say like right at the end of the year.
Okay.
So because something had happened that she wanted to update, and I can't off the top of my head remember what that was. So that has been updated.
I just think there's a deadline coming at the end of January. I don't know where.
Oh, well, the deadline for submissions was December the 15th.
Okay.
The journal's already in production now. I mean,
Okay.
these have already been like laid out and edited. So as soon as this meeting is over, it is.
Okay. The time has come and gone.
It's like I am off and running and we're going to press. So we're in the throes of it now.
Jennifer, it might be helpful both for those of us that have been around here for a while and those of us that are new to remind us of the deadlines for each of the upcoming quarterly journals. And so when does the journal come out and what the deadline is for each issue?
I can tell you that now, but would it be more helpful to have it in writing in an email?
How about both?
Okay. The deadline for materials is always the 15th, the month prior to our meeting. So that would be December the 15th, March 15th, June 15th, and September 15th. And then the publication date is always the first of the month, not following, but after the month following the meeting. So our next edition will come out March 1st, and then June 1st, September 1st, December 1st. It takes about 2.5 weeks to put everything in the back half of the journal. So that's everything that comes out of the council meeting, and a lot of our columns, like the specialization column and those types of things, all get edited as soon as the meeting is over and I get those materials. And then it takes about 3 weeks to print and mail.
Okay, so just to clarify then, December 15th is the deadline for the issue that comes out March 1st.
Correct.
Right? March 15th is the deadline that comes out June 1st. June 15th is the deadline for what comes out on September 1st, and then September 15th is the deadline for the December 1st edition.
Correct.
Got it.
And that 15th deadline is not like a drop dead deadline, but that always gives the board enough time to review a submission. And if it's something we really want to publish, but if there are issues that need to be addressed by the author, some edits that need to be made, or something that the board wants to see additionally included, it gives us a little bit of a buffer of a couple of weeks for the author to address those things and to solidify the article for publication. Any other comments about what we've got slated for spring? If not, we can move on to what we've kind of got in the pipeline under our proposed articles. And Alice, I'm not sure if Alice is still here or not, or if she stepped out. Alice, are you here?
I'm here.
Hi,
I'm
Alice.
here. Here's my face. What's up, Jen?
Stop juggling balls. We've got one article that you're on the agenda for, and that was the equal access to justice, and that they're studying the gap in legal representation and should be producing a report. Do you have any updates on that?
No, I do not.
Okay,
But I'm glad to check on it.
perfect. Okay, then Andrea, you've somehow come through unscathed and with no responsibilities. That's what you get for like coming off as being chair for several years. We give you a pass 1 quarter. That's it. And you're muted. I see your lips moving, but I hear nothing. We'll come back to Andrea. She's like throwing the towel. Okay. That brings us to Camille. The diversity training article I just sent to you guys yesterday. So I'm giving you some time to review that. And then the only other article you've got in the pipeline, Camille, is that regulating change committee.
Right. And I think the committee will meet again in late January.
Okay.
And I don't know that we're ready to start writing yet. I think that would need to be more of a conversation at the committee level. But we have done kind of a first CLE with some members of the committee. And so I anticipate that there won't be a problem and somebody will be excited about writing about this. But I think it's probably a little premature.
Okay.
I would anticipate
keep it on here. I don't think that you're generally on top of things, and I don't think you'll probably forget about it, but I'll just keep it on the agenda just so we kind of like keep it front of mind for you.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sounds good.
And Jennifer, just for your information too, I'm the chair of that. I'm the chair of that committee. So happy to work with
fantastic.
Camille on that. I agree completely with Camille's comments. I think we're wrapping up our education piece. We're moving into a discussion of what might be appropriate for North Carolina. I think we're going to try to have a report to the entire, council sometime in that summerish timeframe is my goal in terms of timing. And there may be something maybe not the report we give to the council, but some version of it may well be appropriate to put in the journal.
It sounds like Mark just volunteered to write an article. Am I wrong?
I didn't want to say that when I was talking because, I do think Mark carries the burden of AVO pretty heavily with him. So I don't want to commit Mark to anything. I'm happy to help Mark in any way with this article.
We can cross that bridge later.
I'm on that committee too, Jennifer. And if Mark had not volunteered, given up his true identity, I was ready to out.
I'm not surprised. Now we got too many people here that have seen me in that role. wasn't going to be able to hide for long.
Well, if not you, I'm sure you can come up with somebody, or Camille can, and then somebody might volunteer, but it's good to know that you're chair of that. So thank you. All right. Darren is not with us, so I'll follow up with him on his responsibilities. The one article you did get sent yesterday from Kim Crouch. So, but I'll follow up with him on the Matt Davenport piece. Let's see, that leads us to Gray. I'm assuming we're still doing the Supreme Court anniversaries are still coming through this year. Is that correct? Where did he go? There he is.
I thought that was over. The problem is the pandemic has not yet, subsided. And so I wanted the lead on this to be taken by the North Carolina Supreme Court Historical Society. And I think my brother-in-law was still president last time I checked. So I'll press him, to see if we can get something going there. It's just hard to do while we're all isolated like this. But I will tell you that if the Supreme Court has ever been enthusiastic about anything, it was this. So at some point, we'll try to move forward on that. It'd be a wonderful, monument to the profession to have that thing set up right next to the State Bar building in downtown Raleigh. It's a perfect lot there for it, but I'll have to get back to you on that after I pester my brother-in-law again.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Gray. Heidi, you are up next. NASCAR.
First of all, I'm really excited that I knew every single word that Gray just used. That's probably a first. Second, it might also be helpful, Jennifer, I don't know if you sent out an email about this, but to remind everybody about sort of the turnaround time on the review of the articles and the process that you've put in place, because it's a good one. And you're really good about reminding us and staying on top of us, thankfully, for those of us who tend to lag. So NASCAR, that was an interesting conversation, most of which I won't belabor here, but the long and the short of it was she wanted to think about it. Ironically, I followed up with her on Monday and then got a response this morning that said, we just need to wait on that for a little bit.
Okay.
I can't seem to get any of my judge people on board with writing anything. Judge Green is effectively retired and is taking that way too seriously. And he's a fantastic writer, and I can't seem to get him to want to commit at the moment. And, Justice Wichert, I have not followed up with at all. Now, on the final article, which I think is the most intriguing and the most timely, we were originally going to do that for last December. I haven't talked to Brad in a bit, but he was absolutely willing to do it. And obviously that's coming down the pipelines. I don't know, maybe Colin knows if anything has changed on the e-filing process and whether or not they're still planning on rolling it out with Wake County and I think maybe Harnett and 2 other counties as the preliminary counties before launching it statewide. But
I think that's still the plan. I think it's Harnett, Johnson, and Lee, and Wake were the ones that were the pilot project.
Okay, so Brad is on board with writing that. So that's really just a question of what do we think the optimum rollout date would be. It seems like it would be for the June issue, which means he would need to have it done by March 15th. Does that sound right to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So I will have him finalize that.
Okay. As far as my article, that was sent to you in the batch that I sent yesterday. So waiting on feedback from all of you on that, which means we are up to Margaret. Margaret, we can't hear you.
Sorry, here I am.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the president for reappointing me to this committee. I always enjoy it. We have a good time. So thank you very much. I'm a little late on that, but anyway, thank you. Yeah, I have checked with Mary Wills Bodie, who is interested and willing to write this article. She was the executive director of North Carolinians for Redistricting Reform, a bipartisan, this is the bipartisan group formed by Tom Ross. And, or I'd say bipartisan and nonpartisan. But anyway, she is now on the board of directors of that organization. There is no ED anymore. And she is an attorney with Robinson Bradshaw in Charlotte. She's been an attorney in New York and is now studying for the North Carolina bar, and I assume she'll pass that. And she will certainly, I'm sure, connect with Chuck McGrady about this, because he is also on the board of that organization and had filed one of the several bills that was in the General Assembly last session. It would seem to me to ask her to do this and meet the March deadline if she can, because the General Assembly will be in session. And if they do anything, I think it would be instructive for the readers to have seen and understood what is out there, what sorts of proposals are out there for a more independent, or not even that, just a different redistricting system.
Great. All right, so March 15th is what we're working toward.
Yes, I will ask her about that. And Jennifer, I'll send you her contact. I'll connect y'all by email.
Okay.
And she'll probably ask things like how many words and that sort of thing.
I can answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. All right, Stephen. Is this still our Moonshiners article? Where are we at on this? This is be so good. Where is this?
I have not gotten up with John again since we last met, but I agree with you. It's a nice topic, and I intend to do a little bit of history research on it myself, historical research, and try to maybe cajole John a little bit to get him more enthusiastic about it. But I think we can get that done in the coming months.
Excellent, good. It sounds bold, could potentially be wet. It's all the things Gray likes. But all right, so.
Could I say something?
Yes, sir.
May I suggest that you contact my predecessor, John Gehring. He knew a judge in the 40s and 50s who tried about one moonshining case a day in Wilkesboro. So he may be able to give you some background information on that.
I'll do it, Tom. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just when John Gehring thought he could escape, we'll suck him back in too.
He knew that.
All right, so that means we have reached the point in our meeting where we brainstorm potential new topics for upcoming editions. Does anyone have anything on their mind, any hot topics that you think we need to be covering?
Well, Jennifer, I think you know that one of our appellate court judges is writing a serious article right now that is critical of not our CLE system, but of continuing legal education in general across the country. He's armed with the statistics on this. And I think his interest was prompted by the fact that when he was working on his LLM over at Duke, while a member of the appellate court, and had logged quite enough number of educational hours at that time, he was braced by the state bar, that he still didn't have some of his CLE hours in. And having survived that tussle, he has resolved to write and submit this article, which I think will be very scholarly and somewhat controversial. And it is my opinion that this publication, I'll just make sure our chairman knows this, needs to continue to have a lot of good sizzle, or nobody's going to read it. But I think that'll be a very good article when we get it, and I look forward to seeing what he does with it.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
I'm sorry, Greg, what is you said he's writing it anyway for another publication? Or,
No, he's writing it for the State Bar Journal.
oh, for the State Bar Journal? Okay. Great.
He had some concerns as to whether or not this publication would entertain such an article. And I told him to let it rip. If it has sizzle, you know, we'll run with it.
I don't see why there would be any objection. As much as we all love CLEs.
Might include some photographs. Keep it interesting.
We need to add sizzle to our list of necessary qualities, right? Bold, wet, and sizzle.
Yes, and a few more, but they're beyond your semantical skills at this
I
time.
have no doubt. If you can keep it under 6 letters, though, we're good.
And English, no more Latin. Quit with the Latin.
Only Tom understands the Latin.
Oh, all right. Anybody else? Who's got some ideas?
I'm chairing the subcommittee on what the state bar should do, if anything, in terms of a rule to deal with discrimination, an anti-discrimination rule and professional responsibility, which is kinds of rules have been adopted by many states and not adopted by others. But together with all of there's a committee in our organization about diversity training. The North Carolina Bar Association has just come out with mea culpa on the historical formation of that organization and its racial, racist roots. So that's clearly a subject that's going to be, I think, front and center in 2021. And I don't know where we go with that, Jennifer and group, but I think we all need to think about what the journal might do to keep fresh and interesting materials before our membership on that. And of course, what Camille, the articles that she's working on dovetail with that.
Okay. Do you think there's an article, like kind of a post-mortem after the work is done of the committee, just to kind of say what expectations you came into it with, what the discussions were, how you kind of came to whatever you've resolved to do? Is there some kind of recap so that the members know sort of the process and what happened? Not just the outcome?
I think so, but we may be a long way from that day. And in the interim, the kind of article I was thinking about, and in a recent meeting with some of the leadership, it was maybe the tension to some extent is to what extent do North Carolina lawyers need discipline in this realm? What can we do voluntarily? What will diversity training do for us? Because I think that's clearly coming. And the tension between that and this is a rule violation and you're going to be hauled before the disciplinary side of the shop. And maybe even between now and the end game, there's an article to be written on that. I don't know, just a kind of a back and forth between what all might be, what's the efficacy of those remedial efforts look like to us at this point, and what do we need in terms of more of a stick as opposed to a carrot approach?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but always think about what it looks like from another lawyer's perspective, a Black lawyer, or for me, a woman lawyer, or a gay lawyer for that matter. And what I don't know, it's just I think an area that historically our state has struggled with. I was reading some of the Bar Association materials, and this is not an ancient history thing. It started in 1898, but in 1970, we were still making rules and struggling to get Black lawyers, in full stream into our bar association.
Steve, if I can jump in, we have appointed a new subcommittee that'll start meeting soon. That's on, diversity, inclusion, things like that. And, one of the things they'll talk about is what our history as a state bar is and stuff. So it may be that an article will bubble up from that subcommittee's meetings and stuff. And,
is that the one Brandy's chairing, Barbara?
Todd Brown.
Oh, Todd, okay.
It's brand new, so they haven't met yet, I don't think.
Okay.
But they've got a lot of things that they're looking at. So that may be the best place, to give them a little time to do, and maybe we kind of put that as something for them to think about. So, and then other thing I was going to say was, Jennifer, you got a chat from Andrea.
Yes. He's having technical difficulties. All right, good. Barbara, thanks for that information. That's excellent to know. I'm gonna look at my chat. Andrea has been chatting us because she's having some technical difficulties, I guess, with her microphone. Let me see what she's got. She has a couple of ideas and
technical difficulties because she's in Miami. So let's spare the pity.
Spare the pity. No sympathy from this group. I tell you, we're calling people out left and right. All right, so she's got an article on new Court of Appeals and Supreme Court judges is coming. It is being written, Andrea. You can just maybe. The other one is a series of articles featuring attorneys around the state that are doing interesting to balance their careers in fun and meaningful other ventures. We had kind of started a series about that, trying to get some lawyers to talk about things that they do outside of the law that they find fulfilling, whether it's, being a big brother or coach of a little league team or a junior hockey team or something like that. We didn't get terribly far with those. So I'm not quite sure where else to go with that. Does anyone have any thoughts about people you might know that are interested in interesting outside the legal activities, pro bono work or something like that? Anything pop into your heads?
I will tell Andrea, for some reason, you're signed in twice. So like you have 2 Zoom connections, which is probably why you have all that feedback when you try to speak. And Jennifer, those are always interesting when you read them.
Yeah, I know. I just think it just has to be, maybe just keep it in the front of your mind. And as you're out and out and about, not so much out and about, but maybe in meetings, Zoom calls, that kind of thing. And you come across somebody and you'll think, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that she's involved with this or he's involved with that. I think sort of even like that, the article that we've got coming out with the attorney who's doing the true crime podcast is, something interesting and outside of, your day-to-day practice. So just keep it in mind. Something might pop into your head. And if so, think about the journal, as you should every day. The other article suggestion that Andrea had was that Linda McGee has just retired after 20 plus years, and maybe somebody would be interested in interviewing her. Let me see. And other women chief justices that have retired and what it was like through the years.
Justice Beasley's just, she's just stepped down, and Robert Rader did a lot of historic preservation stuff with Yates Mill. I mean, he's just retired. He might have time available to put something together.
Okay.
I thought Wanda Bryan also stepped down with McGee at the same time.
Yeah.
That'd be another candidate. And they wrote this transcontinentally horizonless 130 plus page opinion that came out this week with a tart dissent by Judge Tyson. So I'm sure they might be happy to talk about that.
Great.
And I do think, to Andrea's point about people that do have outside interests, while I don't read Tolstoy, I do love People magazine, and human interest stories are always right. You do too, you just don't tell anybody. Human interest stories, I think, are always captivating. And I know that that's what folks around here are most drawn to.
Yeah. Colin, would you feel comfortable reaching out to Robert and seeing if he has an interest? And
Sure.
that would be wonderful. I agree with you, Heidi. I think anytime you can kind of put a personal spin, I mean, people were just interested, and
well, I think even
other
wasn't
people are up to, and
one of Gray's colleagues that was the ultra marathoner.
yeah,
That ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. Maybe he was an Ironman, something like that.
He's on our council. That's George Cleveland, and he's now a judge, district court.
I thought his name was Tom for some reason, but the guy that was the ultra marathoner, not George. But whatever happened, Jennifer, with the contest, the submissions from the
the sabbatical writing competition.
Wasn't it COVID?
Yes.
Among the committee, if I recall.
Yes. And I had that on my list to add to the agenda, and I completely forgot about it. So thank you for bringing it up. It almost came down to like a 4-way tie. And so I kind of, at one point, I just sort of threw my hands up and pushed it to the side and thought, I'll deal with that later. Because there was the one submission that some people really had an issue with, and yet it was one of the top articles. And so I'll email you all about that, because I just wasn't quite sure how to handle the fact that they all kind of were neck and neck, but one of the ones in the lead was a little controversial. So that might be something I can throw out to the committee, or maybe Stephen, Tom and I can kind of discuss what to do with that. Certainly we are under no obligation to print any of them. We can print all of them. So yeah.
Well, maybe you could submit it to some of the new committee members and they can break the tie.
Ooh, okay.
Food for thought.
You're sounding like it was a 4-way tie for last, though, Jennifer.
I know, it's kind of.
Well, I think, and it's always sort of been like this when we did the fiction writing competition. It's never an overwhelming unanimous, we all loved this one or these two. It's always an article, a submission gets, I love it, love it, love it. It was the worst article I've ever written, and it should be burned and never see the light of day again. And that's, I mean, it's just, because it's just, it's everyone's opinion. It's in that case, it was fiction. In this case, it's just people writing about their experiences, but there's no rules about how to judge something like that. You're just going with your gut, and we all come from different perspectives and like to read different things and are interested, in Tolstoy or People magazine. And so, you're just going to get a mix of, reactions to those submissions. So at one point there was a really clear winner, and I think it was the one that was sort of divisive. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And then I think we had 2 people come in late with their scores, and it just completely flipped the whole thing.
Can you guys hear me now?
Hey, there she is. Yay. Yeah.
I think Barbara was right. I think somehow I got onto 2 systems. So my thoughts on what you were just talking about is, let's just wrap it up and publish. If we want to send it out to the new members just to get their feedback, why not just publish the ones that passed the muster? I think you said there were 3 out of 4 that that everybody had voted on, and we just throw out the one that nobody liked.
Okay.
But I feel like we went through the effort to do it. It'd be nice to just follow through with that. And COVID still is interfering with our practices, so it's still timely.
Yeah, I'll wrap that up and we'll get one in this upcoming edition. That's fair.
The other thing I wanted to comment on was, Gray, the opinion that you said that just came out, was that the LBGT opinion there that Linda McGee just wrote?
Yes.
I haven't read it yet. I just heard about it, but it sounds like it's pretty significant. And
it's very significant. And I think, most people would agree it's the correct constitutional result, but there were a number of procedural issues involved, including subject matter jurisdiction, in which one of my partners was involved, and got some commentary about him in the opinion. But as far as the integrity of the constitutional challenge, I think they were spot on in that regard, and I think that would be well received in the profession. But it's a complicated opinion, and there's a vigorous dissent by Judge Tyson. But I think it was a very nice swan song for Judges McGee and Bryant.
Well, so if we wanted to follow up on that, is what kind of angle would we do? Like an interview, or do you think it's better to write like an article summarizing the significance? Or I mean, what are you thinking? I'm just, because I don't mind calling Linda to see, if she's willing to help us come up with something.
I mean, it was a landmark decision without question. One of the most significant decisions in a long time.
I agree, but the mandate is not even run on this thing at this point. I think we have to have some time pass before we can write about it.
If it's 2-1, it may go up to the Supreme Court.
Well, the losing party did not appear in the case, so that may not happen, and yet it may happen. There are some amicus ways around that. So I think Colin's right. I think it's going to end up in the higher court here.
So maybe we can just put it on the list to monitor.
Yep.
Okay, great. Did we cover all of the things you threw out, Andrea, in your chat?
Yeah, so on the thought about doing features on non-legal activities of attorneys, I just wanted to reiterate that, like what Heidi said, and that is, and I guess Barbara said it, a lot of people acknowledge that it's just something that is fun and light to read, but I also think it's helpful for attorneys that get swept up in the I guess the workaholic mentality, just knowing that other people are figuring out how to do things outside of practicing. To me, there's some value in it too. So maybe it's just a matter of us, just when we're out and about, if we know of people that are interesting, just see if we can pin somebody down, if they'd be willing to kind of help us either write about it or help us write about them.
Okay. Yeah, we all know interesting people, although I would not caption it non-legal activities of lawyers. That doesn't resonate. But we all know interesting people, and I think that they make our profession what it is. And it'd be fun if we could come up with some people that maybe are a little bit off the usual radar.
Yeah. It's in keeping with Gray's request, be sizzle and yours about People Magazine. Maybe I could ask Judge Rader about the black robe, who wore it best. And
I'd like to make a proposal that anyone who reads People Magazine cannot be a member of this committee.
Excuse me.
It would
Did I lead anybody to believe that I read that? Please.
Just look at the pictures.
Looking at you, Heidi Bloom.
Hey, I have the People's Sexiest Man edition sitting on my counter.
Mark has
You're
a
just trying to
suggestion
get kicked
there
off of here.
on the chat about national topic, like he's saying the Electoral College, and that certainly would be timely. I would note we have two past presidents with us who both gave up the office without incident, to the best of my knowledge.
That's right. The state bar has a long tradition of peaceful transfer of power, which we could talk about.
It's somewhat the opposite.
But there's no objection to that, right, Jennifer? If we got into a more broad topic like the Electoral College?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think it could be.
Well, Mark, if you understand it, I'd be happy to have you explain it to me.
I'm definitely not an expert on the Electoral College, and I'm not volunteering to write an article on it. It is just something that I think I and most lawyers have spent some time thinking about in the last days and weeks about why we have it. I mean, I know from, law school some of why the constitutional compromise that resulted in the Electoral College, but it does make me wonder, as we go through and get these, get the popular vote and then go through these additional layers of picking electors and having them vote and then having Congress confirm it. It doesn't seem like a good modern system. And so I've certainly been thinking we got to come up with some way to revise or abolish it, even if either just go to a simple national popular vote or some other more automated system. If we're going to reflect if we want some weighting for states, like the Electoral College where small states have more voice, you could structure it there, but it needs to be an automatic process. Now, to me, it is kind of crazy to actually, pick people and then either count on them to vote away or pass a state law, binding them to vote a certain way. I just think it's totally inconsistent with the original notion of a group of people that would have a discussion about who to vote for. We've moved far away from it. And I think to me, it's something that we need to get rid of. Obviously, you got to amend the Constitution to do it. So it's not going to happen tomorrow. By the time we issued it, hopefully some of the current, political fervor around it will have died down. But I do think, it just strikes me as if you're interested in law and interested in structure, it is a problem to have a system that works the way it does. And candidly, the fact that we have whatever it is now, 130 members of the House of Representatives voting to reject certified results is deeply troubling to me, just regardless of politics. The idea that you could simply say we're not going to accept, what the states have done, that suggests a fundamental flaw in the process. So that's at risk of being political. That's my thought about that. And I think, and it may be something that could be addressed down the road in a cooler time to just say, why do we have it and what would be involved, and maybe get people thinking about actually adopting some reform.
That could lead to like an article and a point counterpoint set,
Yeah.
Mark. I agree with everything you said, but I know that there are people that still want it. And maybe, we could think about doing something where you get both perspectives.
And maybe even a historical piece. I've never educated. I've sort of scratched my head and said, I just don't understand why we have this process, why my vote is different from somebody's vote in North Dakota or whatever. But maybe even reaching out to Philip and seeing if he would do another historical piece for us and just kind of explain the thought process behind it and why at the time it seemed that we needed a system like that. So where was it coming from? And then you could have the two articles discussing, does it still apply today?
Or perhaps even someone from the School of Government who would tell us how it works. I think the last couple of days has been instructive for a lot, but for me, I didn't understand fully the way the process went on. But somebody who can say, this is what the process is and how it does work, and either someone like School of Government or Michael Crowell or some of the lawyers who have been involved in that kind of election law issues that might have insights into.
Okay.
And I really like the idea of using the school of government, because then it kind of makes it clear that we're not seeking out particular side on the issue, by having an objective, government institutionalist kind of write it would be a preference for me.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have a contact at the School of Government that they feel would be sort of most fitting for a topic like this?
I don't, but I don't mind calling that some staff attorney that is in that department, and just asking them point blank if anybody in that department would be interested in talking to us about that.
How about someone like Jim Drennan, who's done that, he's run the School of Government and done and still does some public interest kind of things. But he might be, I mean, he's very, kind of blue chip person. And if he were not interested, he might know who the right person to ask. I think Mike Smith runs the school now, doesn't he? Or Mike's still running the School of Government, isn't he? Margaret, I kind of been out of touch with him a little bit.
As far as I know, but it's possible that he retired and we just don't know, but he would certainly be a person to direct us to someone knowledgeable in that area.
Okay. Is that something you want me to, I can contact Mike, or is there somebody who wants to take that up?
I don't mind, but Jennifer, maybe if you start and if you get to a dead end, I don't mind stepping in and helping.
Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Great. Thanks, Mark. All right, any other avenues we need to pursue?
This is Margaret. I don't even know how to begin to do this, but I have heard from two different people I know, both of whom have adult children with significant mental health issues. And these young people have, of course, bumped into legal, they've committed, I don't even know if you say crimes, offenses that they should not have done. One of these people lives in a county that has a mental health court. The other does not. And the way the legal system handles these cases, which are of course not exactly the same, but have a lot of similarities, is very different. One of these young people is facing significant criminal penalties, and the other has gone through a mental health court that helps deal with that. And it's such a big topic, I don't even know where to begin that. But I think for people who have to find themselves in that position, or their families in that position, this is a pretty big issue. And I don't know it's too big for me, certainly as a non-attorney, but it's just kind of the luck of the draw. If you're if you're fortunate enough to have mental health issues in a county that has a mental health court, you're better off than the people who are not. I don't know where we go with that. People have just mentioned it to me, and I think it's an issue for people in that situation.
When you say mental health court, is that, I guess maybe our county doesn't have it. Is it just when you're trying to?
I don't even know how I don't know how one gets to mental health court. Whether a judge has to accept, some of y'all may know, accept a case. But if, for instance, instead of putting them in jail for violating what do we call it, 50B order, the keep away from people order, one of these young men went to his county jail for that and sat for months. Going on years. And then because the mental health system itself is so overworked and barely exists, actually, in North Carolina at least. They could never review his case. So he just sat and sat and sat. And I mean, the mental health professionals could not get to him. The other one just took a whole different channel that seemed to understand more how to deal with people with significant mental health issues. And I don't know how one gets a mental health court or a veterans court or a drug court. Some counties have these things and some don't. And it does seem to me that if you are mentally ill or have a drug problem or whatever, or you've got you have veterans issues like PTSD, you're much better off to be in a place where that's available to you. And if you're not, it's going to be a tougher go. And I don't know who decides who gets those resources and who doesn't. I think it's the county must fund it, I guess. Cullen, do you know that? I don't know.
There has, to my knowledge, there hadn't been any state funding for any of those courts. They've existed locally where local court officials would decide to create a court. And the big issue has been, you have to pull people away from some other assignment in order to put them in that. And some districts have felt like they had the ability to do that, but it's set up primarily by local officials. I mean, there's some national models for how you do it, but we don't, our courts are all state funded, but we don't have any funding for veterans courts and mental health courts and things like that. So it's been a struggle, but you might look at, seems like they did one over in Orange County. There've been several veterans courts around, but the mental health courts probably have been fewer, but it might be to look at a district where that has existed, because they're fairly rare, I think.
Yeah, well,
and labor intensive.
Yes, and one of these parents just said to me, had my child behave this way 15 miles down the road, his life would be an entirely different story. And it just seemed, and now, of course, I know that the Leandro suit had a constitutional issue, not issues, but a foundation, and these do not. But it does seem to be, at some level, unequal treatment under the law, or maybe I'm making that up, but it seemed to me that these two young people were not treated in the same way. I don't know where to go with that. It's just something that's been on my mind.
Since there is not state funding for this, is this anything that the AOC would oversee or have knowledge of? Or like if I contacted Sharon Gladwell at the AOC and said, hey, we're interested in an article about, because it sounds like there's an education aspect to this article if we don't even know how a case gets to a mental health court, even if one exists. And how were these formed? How are they funded? It seems like there's a really good article here. Do we think someone at the AOC might be able to point us in the right direction?
She might know where they exist.
Okay.
And another sort of perspective is, it's broad, but we could probably narrow it to certain areas, is sort of the intersection of mental health and the law. The opposite side of the coin, Margaret, is I had a case last week where one of the spouses was extremely abusive, but the episodes occurred when they were having a mental health breakdown.
Yes.
And the DVPO was denied because it was a mental health issue. Since when the why mattered, I don't know, but there is some legitimacy to that.
And it's very complicated because a lot of the people are on medication and they quit taking their medication and just go off the deep end. And it's such a big topic, I don't even know how to start, but I think it would be interesting for the readers to know who has these specialized courts. Obviously, Cumberland County has a drug court and a veterans court because they need both, but how they got them, I guess they just berated county officials into doing it. I don't know, but how some counties get them and some don't. Obviously, more advantaged counties are likely to have more of it.
It's local court officials and the drug treatment courts. The funding, statewide funding, dried up for most of that. Most of them that get by now have patched together grants. Wake County, we were very fortunate. Our Wake County ABC board, we sell a lot of whiskey here, and we were very profitable, and a percentage of that has to go to treatment. And they decided that that was a worthy cause for treatment, and they funded our drug treatment court, or a significant portion of our drug treatment courts here, when we couldn't get money elsewhere. The Wake ABC board did it.
So as an attorney listening to all this, like, I want to know, do these courts work? I know we had drug treatment court in our county, and I don't think we're doing it anymore because of the funding, but if it's working, I don't know. I would like to know that. That might be, one angle. And then on the mental health court, I've never heard of it before, but it sounds intriguing. What county is it that has it? Do you know?
I know Brunswick County has it.
Maybe we can try to find out, like, how they got it in Brunswick County. Just try to reconstruct how they got from point A to point B.
Yeah, I have no idea. But Jennifer, if you're willing to ask the AOC if they have an overview of this at all, I think it could be certainly an article, and it could be a series of articles. How the mental health courts treat people with mental health problems, the drug problems. I know that at one point, and Colin, you would probably know this too, the folks in Cumberland County thought their drug court was very successful, and that it was they were very strict. I mean, the judge who ran it, if the person fell off the wagon, they were out of the court and back in the regular courts. And so they had a real incentive. The people going through the courts had a real incentive to behave themselves so they didn't get back in the regular system and back in jail. And I think, of course, it didn't work for everybody, but I think it worked for a lot of people.
Funding has been a big issue all around the state. The other is it's really personality driven. You have to have a judge. It's hard, difficult work, and you have to have a judge who has a passion for that sort of thing and takes it on, because it's an extra burden for them. And in some places it's been very successful, but funding has been really probably the biggest limitation. I think there are lots of people who are willing to do it if we just had the funds available to finance it.
I can share some information, some contact information with Jennifer. Lawyers Mutual did an interview a couple of years ago with one of the judges in Fayetteville who's involved with the Veterans Treatment Court, and they were part of a national program. And so I can give Jennifer that contact information.
We ran an article, and I feel like it has been several years, about a veterans court. I think I had seen a news article on like NBC News or something that talked about a veterans court. And then I think I sort of threw it out to the board. Do we have that in North Carolina? But it's been I feel like this has been several years ago. Did it exist several years ago? It just feels like it was a long time ago, but I know we ran an article about that, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, and they have they've pulled together its mental health professionals and treatment specialists, and it's a wide network. And so that's why I thought that this Veterans Court contact might have some more awareness of just mental health courts in North Carolina, if they exist, how they exist.
Yeah, I'd even like to go back and look at that article and see how long ago that was published. I feel like we've come such a long way in acceptance of mental health as an issue, and specifically PTSD with our military members, and just realizing how significant they've been impacted with the suicide rates. And I mean, this has all been well publicized, I feel like, most recently. So if it was a while ago, it almost might be worth like a follow-up article to see where they at and what their success stories have been through that court as well.
I think all of the above is worth looking at.
Yeah. Again, just for the educational aspect. I mean, when we have people on here that say, I didn't even know this existed, I don't think you're alone in that.
Let's just put it on the list, and maybe between now and the next meeting, we can kind of brainstorm or put
Yeah.
some feelers out. So.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Good. We have exceeded our allotted time, which if we were all together in Raleigh, we would have scurried off to other meetings by now. But it's always great to get together with a bunch of my fellow lawyers and talk wide and far about ideas that interest us. And I'm always just excited by what we come up with, and appreciate you keeping us on track, Jennifer. And thanks to everybody for participating today.
If you have a topic and we didn't get to you and it's something you want to brainstorm, feel free to always email me after the meeting or in the interim between our meetings. I'm always, my email box is always open.
I did see that Peter put a comment out saying he followed up with Mac on the baseball.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I hear back from him what his thoughts are.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Peter.
And thank you, Andrea, for a couple of years at least of service as the chair of the group.
Woohoo.
Well, I'm happy to hand over the gavel to you, Steve. You're doing a good job so far.
Thank you all again very much.
Thanks, everyone.